Today we're going to be talking about the CivicSpark program, our partners, and really what it means to be a fellow in the program. But just a couple of logistical pieces before we get started. We'll have plenty of time for a question and answer at the end of the webinar. But if you do have any questions that pop up throughout, please do chat your questions into the question bar on the side. I will be looking at those throughout the webinar. Some of those I'll address immediately, but most of them we will talk about at the end of the webinar. And we'll also be joined by Ariadna Hernandez, who is a CivicSpark Fellow from 2014-15 program year, and is also a currently our program staff, our project coordinator for the CivicSpark program. So you'll get to hear from her a little bit later on as well. But an agenda for the webinar today, we'll start by giving you an overview of CivicSpark as a program, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you can make an impact addressing climate change and water resource management needs with us. We'll talk about some of the program structure elements and the program goals, and then, as I mentioned, what it means to be a CivicSpark Fellow, a little bit more about what your day-to-day life will look like. We'll talk a little bit more about the CivicSpark Water Action Fellowship. If you're familiar with the program as it existed in the past, we only had one climate track before, but we're really excited to have a climate and a water track this year. So we'll be talking a little bit more about what the difference between the two tracks are and what the different projects are in those different program areas. We'll talk a little bit about the fellow recruitment process and next steps. So what's the timeline from here and what does the process look like? And then, as I mentioned, we'll have a lot of time at the end of the webinar for questions. Talking about what is CivicSpark. CivicSpark is a Governor's Initiative AmeriCorps program at the highest level. Each governor around the country is allowed to pick one AmeriCorps program that they feel best aligns with their administration's goals and objectives, and Governor Brown selected the CivicSpark program. So both the climate and water tracks are Governor's Initiative programs, and they're dedicated to building capacity for local governments to address climate change and water resource management needs. So you will be that tool. And one of the questions that we get a lot is, what does capacity building really mean? It's really giving local governments the tools and resources that they need to be able to work on climate and water issues in their local agencies. A lot of local governments did not rebound in terms of staffing after the recession. So CivicSpark provides the resources that local governments do need in many cases to actually get important pieces of legislation through, work on these projects, build programs that address their climate and water issues that their communities are facing. So you will be the person to go in and actually build that capacity so that local governments can actually address these issues that they're facing. And what is AmeriCorps? So we are an AmeriCorps program. We're also a fellowship. AmeriCorps is, if you're not familiar with it, a lot of people think about it as the domestic Peace Corps. It's a service program that's dedicated to improving local communities and addressing their greatest needs. So for CivicSpark, you'll be focusing on climate and water needs in these communities, but as we'll talk about a little bit later, there are a lot of different pieces that go into that. And by serving as an AmeriCorps member, you'll be joining over 80,000 other fellows that serve across the nation annually. And the 2016-17 year will be AmeriCorps' 22nd service year. And the CivicSpark program is managed by the Local Government Commission in partnership with the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. So LGC, all the staff members that run the CivicSpark program, myself, Ariadna, our director, we all work for the Local Government Commission, which is a nonprofit based in Sacramento. It's been around for over 30 years, and we work on addressing a wide range of sustainability issues in communities, not only around California, but around the country as well. And we're partnered with the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, OPR. As I mentioned, we're a Governor's Initiative program, so our relationship with the Governor's Office is really strong, and that provides you with an excellent opportunity to connect with folks working at the state level, network with state employees, and also get access to a lot of resources and opportunities throughout the state as well. And CivicSpark is also an opportunity for fellows to make a direct impact on climate change while gaining valuable professional experience as well. And if folks are interested, we can talk a little bit more later on about the different training opportunities that CivicSpark provides as well. In terms of the structure of the program, as I mentioned, we have two program tracks the Climate Action Fellowship, which we call CivicSpark Climate, and the Water Action Fellowship, CivicSpark Water. So we have 48 Climate Action Fellows and 20 Water Fellows. The Climate Fellows are placed in teams of 3 to 14 in regions around the state, 8 regions. And these Climate Fellows work on implementing climate and sustainability-focused projects throughout 11 months. The Water Fellows, the structure is a little bit different. All Water Fellows are embedded in teams of 2 directly in local and regional agencies. So whereas the Climate Fellows have a regional staff member who's there half-time to kind of build that team cohort, the Water Fellows are directly embedded with another fellow in their agency, and they'll be connected to that team of Climate Fellows nearby as well. So no matter which track you're in, all the fellows will attend orientation together, will attend the mid-year gathering together, and you'll get to know and really build a pretty impressive network of folks interested in sustainability issues around the state. The other key partners in the CivicSpark program, we have 8 regional partners, which are local agencies that are already immersed in the community. And they're a great hub for resources, networking, and a lot of information around the state. So these agencies are really pivotal in the work that's going on in the sustainability field, and you'll get to meet folks that work in those agencies as well. We have 9 regional coordinators who serve in those 8 regions, and then we have 8 that serve in those 8 regions and 1 that kind of floats around the state and provides a lot of high-level support as well. They will run a lot of the regional trainings, professional development trainings, and other activities throughout the year. So these are folks who have either gone through the CivicSpark program themselves or are professionals who have experience in the climate field as well. So again, another great support system and an excellent resource for our fellows around the state. Other key partners, over 100 local government agencies are going to be benefiting from service in 2016-17 service year. So a lot of work that's getting done. You'll see the map on the right touches on just a small number of projects from our first service year back in 2014-15, and that has expanded to cover a lot more of the state in 2015-16 and even more of the state in 2016-17. So our impact continues to grow as we touch on all these different local government agencies. We have our 68 fellows, and then we have the 2 agencies, the government agencies that help administer AmeriCorps programs, and that's California Volunteers, which is the state agency that works with AmeriCorps, and CNCS, the Corporation for National and Community Service, and that's the federal agency that works on AmeriCorps programs, and that's where our funding comes from in part. So you'll hear a lot about those 2 agencies if you are selected to be a CivicSpark Fellow, but just wanted to put their names up there right now. And again, please keep those questions coming. Continue to type them in on the chat bar. Sometimes we get flooded with questions at the end. So if you get them in a little bit sooner, that can be helpful as well. So what does it mean to be a CivicSpark Fellow? We'll talk a little bit about what CivicSpark is and what it's not later on. But at a high level, as I mentioned, CivicSpark Fellows are organized in regional teams. So you'll have the Climate Fellows will have direct support from this half-time regional coordinator as well as their local government contacts, but the Water Fellows will also be able to be brought into that network as well. In your regional teams, you'll be doing trainings that are around professional development, but also around subject-specific areas as well. And you'll have additional support from state staff. So we have 2 project coordinators, 2 project managers that work on CivicSpark, a director, an associate. We have a lot of staff that's there to help and support you throughout the service year. And you'll get to meet all of these staff members' orientation. In your service placements, you may be placed with others, as all CivicSpark Water Fellows are, or you can be individually placed in an agency, as a lot of the climate placements are as well. So definitely there are very different types of settings for your project work throughout the year, but one of the similarities is that all fellows will be working for 1,700 hours at least over 11 months. So that 1,700 hours is that cutoff for receiving all the benefits of the program and actually completing the program. So that 1,700 number is a number that you'll hear quite a lot throughout the service year. And as a CivicSpark Fellow, you'll have the chance to really take ownership of projects, gain experience in climate change, gain experience in water resource management, make important contacts, and build professional development. So you'll definitely leave this year with a great introduction to the climate and water fields, as well as a strong professional network. When folks ask me about the program and what it offers, I say that it really is your opportunity to build your sustainability toolkit as much as possible. We're going to do a lot to give you as many resources as we can so that you can really step into a career in the sustainability field after your years as CivicSpark Fellow. The goal and processes of the program, everyone will be working on a service project. That's the meat of your work, where about 80% of your time is going to be. And these specific research planning or implementation projects that you're going to work on follow a process that all fellows are going to address. So if you haven't already seen the different service project offerings for 2016-17, definitely encourage you to check out our website. We have a list of projects that we've been updating really regularly as new projects are added. But again, you will be placed in one service project for the entire year, so we really want to make sure that it's something that you're interested and excited about. Some of the other work that you'll be doing throughout the year, volunteer recruitment and support. All fellows will have time set aside to work on building and improving volunteer services for their communities. And this includes recruiting and supporting volunteers during the service year, really bringing them into the work that you're doing. We really feel that the more you can engage local communities in the work that you're doing, the more likely it is that not only will you be able to help local governments make decisions with their impact and ideas in mind, but you can also continue to make sure that these issues are of importance to the community even after you leave your service year. So all climate fellows will have 150 volunteer hours to work on building the support and building the volunteer services in their community, and all water fellows will have 100 hours to work on volunteer efforts. Then the other main part of the program year is professional development. So about 20% of your time will be spent on training throughout the year. So in addition to orientation and a mid-year retreat, excuse me, all fellows will have 2 other trainings that they attend every month. One will be a statewide seminar that focuses on a particular subject area, content specific to the climate or water field. And then you'll also have a professional development training as well in your region, and these are more building your own professional skills that you'd like to build and develop throughout the course of the service year. So all fellows will define what their professional goals are at the start of the year, and then throughout the year constantly revisit them with staff members to make sure that you're on track to get what you want out of the service year, and making sure that we as staff members are really customizing the trainings to meet your needs. And as I mentioned, I want to talk a little bit more about the Water Action Fellowship, just because it is different from the way the program has been operated in the past. It's a really exciting new addition addressing some of the most important issues facing California right now. Drought and water management issues are incredibly pressing, so we really need folks to be working on these issues locally. So we will have 20 CivicSpark Water Fellows this coming year, as I mentioned, in 10 teams of 2 around the state. And the main focus will be land use and water resource management. The water and land use issues that you be working on, land use planning, groundwater management, flood mitigation, supply and demand challenges, watershed health, and so much more. And some of the main pieces of policy and statewide priorities that you're going to be addressing are the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, known as SGMA, and the California Water Action Plan. So if you have any interest in working on water issues around the state, I really strongly encourage you to apply, and then on your application, select that you are interested in being considered for the Water Action Fellowship. There are just 2 additional questions that you'll need to answer there. So I really encourage you to do that. It's a pretty spectacular opportunity to work on these really cutting-edge water projects around the state. And you'll also be connected to all that's going on in the climate change field as well. So next, I want to talk a little bit more about the recruitment process. So as you know, the application is open. We've had 2 priority deadlines pass, but our 3rd priority deadline is September 15th, which is coming up very soon. We are starting to send folks along for interviews, so encourage you to get your applications in as soon as possible, well ahead of that September 15th deadline. The sooner we can get your application in and begin considering it, the sooner we'll be able to route you along to project partners. And the interview process is several steps. We really want to make sure we've got a really large pool of applicants, and we want to make sure that we're getting the folks who are really a perfect fit for the program. So after reviewing your application, we will select folks for initial phone interviews. These screening calls are about 15 to 30 minutes long, not super long, but a great chance for us to learn a little bit more about you and for you to learn more about the program and what we're looking for. If you're selected to move on past that process, you'll have a second interview that's either in person or via Skype. And those will be much more about your specific interest in the program, what your background is, what your strengths are, and what types of projects are you interested in working on during the course of the service year. If you're selected to move on past that process, you'll be referred to a particular region and project partner. And this is ideally a local interview. It can be over Skype if you're not in the region or over the phone, but would love if you can attend those interviews in person. But this is your opportunity to learn more about the specifics of the projects. As you've seen online, the project descriptions are not super long, but the project partners really know what they're looking for and can tell you a lot more about the specifics of the projects that are up there. So definitely a great opportunity to find the perfect fit for you if you're selected to move on to that part of the process. We're aiming to have fellows hired by the end of September, which is coming up quickly, which is why, again, we're really encouraging folks to get their applications in sooner rather than later. And then the orientation will begin the week of October 9th. And the orientation is a week long. All 68 fellows and our staff members will be in one place learning about these issues together and starting to build that cohort. So really, it's an intense week. There's a lot of training that goes on, a lot of sessions that you all attend, but an excellent opportunity to get to meet these 68 fellows who are working on these sustainability issues and are really interested in it, and start building those connections that you'll really see last well beyond the end of the service year. And after that 1 week of orientation, all fellows will actually start in their project sites on October 17th. That following Monday, you'll return to your office and get going on the work. So a little bit, if you haven't already applied, just touch really briefly on what different pieces we collect in the application. So there'll be a place for you to include your resume. Really encourage you to keep those to just one page. Your education, so your background, focus areas. You will need to include 2 references as well. There's no need to reach out to those references ahead of time to ask them to send us a letter. Definitely let them know that you're listing them as a reference for your CivicSpark application, but we will reach out to them directly with questions, so no need to preemptively send over a letter or anything like that. There'll be a place for you to include some of your skills and interests so that we can better select you with or better place you with projects. And we'll also collect your regional preferences as well. We really want to know what regions you're interested in serving in so that we can start routing you appropriately. And then there are also 4 essay questions for the basic climate application, basic CivicSpark application, and then an additional 2 if you are applying to the Water Action Fellowship as well, which I really encourage you all to do. So all up on the CivicSpark website, and again, I see a lot of folks are asking really great questions about the interview process, but if you have any additional questions, please keep sending them in. And in terms of the qualifications, all fellows need to have at least a 4-year degree and be at least 17 years of age. That's just a basic AmeriCorps requirement, is that age limit. But all of our fellows do need to have a bachelor's degree. We have folks who do have advanced degrees as well. So if you are interested and you do have a master's or higher, you're certainly welcome to attend and apply for the program. That in no way disqualifies you from applying. We have quite a few folks with advanced degrees this year. All fellows will need to pass a Department of Justice, State, and NSOPR, which is a National Sex Offender Public Registry background check. We will send you a form that you'll use for that purpose. You'll need to get a background check before we reached out to you about that. You do need to commit to the entire term of service. It's a national program. You will take a federal government oath, so really want to make sure that folks are committed. That's a huge part of the program. All fellows need to be a citizen, national, lawful, permanent resident, alien of the United States. And you need to be able to work in a professional office setting. This is definitely not your typical AmeriCorps program with a lot of time outside the office. This is it's a strong professional work experience, and the work environment definitely reflects that. You also need to have strong communication, both verbal and written. You'll be doing a lot of projects, meetings, presenting in public forums. So you want to make sure that you're comfortable both producing written products, so giving presentations, and working in a team. All of our climate and water fellows will be working in a team throughout the year. So that's a pretty large part of your service year is teamwork. And we would strongly prefer if folks do have a degree in a sustainability-related field, in climate or water. It's not a requirement. We have folks who have English degrees, economics degrees, a bunch of different backgrounds, but really prefer if you do have that environmental connection. We would love if you do have some experience in the field, as well as past service commitments. It's an AmeriCorps program. Service is very, very important to us, so please definitely highlight that in your application as you're applying. And then also experience and outreach, facilitation to other grassroots organizing is very important. You'll be working with a lot of local governments and community members throughout the year, so if you do have background in that, will definitely serve you well throughout the year. So again, be sure to call that out in your application. We'll talk really briefly about the benefits of the program. So all fellows will receive a $14,000 living allowance, that's before taxes, and it's spread out evenly over 11 months. You'll also, upon the completion of your 1,700 hours, will receive the Education Award, which is equal to $5,775, and that can either be used to pay off existing student loans or continue your education. You will receive forbearance on existing qualified student loans, and the Corporation for National and Community Service will also repay any interest that's accrued on your loans during the service year. You'll receive health insurance, child care assistance if necessary, and really the opportunity to network and build a professional network of climate and water professionals around the state. Not a concrete benefit that we can put on paper, but something that you'll definitely see as a pretty major benefit of the program. So I want everyone to really quickly think about if CivicSpark is right for you. What CivicSpark is, as I mentioned, is a great opportunity to build skill sets relevant to careers in climate change and water resource management. An entry point into the sustainability field, with the opportunity to work on tasks that are much higher level than just entry level. You're not going to be pushing paper and making copies. You're going to be working on very high level projects at the local level. And it's also a chance to build strong professional networks and gain practical skill sets. And it's also an opportunity to make a lasting impact in the local community. The impacts of these projects are pretty substantial, and it's a great opportunity to be a part of that. What CivicSpark is not is a typical high-service AmeriCorps program where you're going to be outside getting your hands dirty, cleaning up streams and planting trees. You're going to be in an office atmosphere most of the time, up to 40 hours a week. And although you'll have plenty of opportunities for volunteer engagement and outreach, most of that will not be your primary function. You will be in the office doing that research and writing behind a computer a lot of the time. So just want to make sure that that's something that you're comfortable with and feel like you could really sustain for 11 months. Also, want to point out that CivicSpark is now on Facebook. We post a lot about the fellows, the work they're doing, the projects that we're doing. We've got a lot of really great podcasts up online from our fellows that have been interviewed by Infinite Earth Radio. So if you haven't already clicked like on our Facebook page, really encourage you to do that if you're interested in the program. And now we'll have some time for questions. And I see we have a lot coming in. But before jumping into questions, I would like to introduce Ariadna Hernandez, as I mentioned, our project coordinator here and a fellow in the Sacramento region from the 2014-15 service year. And I will let Ariadna tell you a little bit more about the work that she did as a CivicSpark Fellow right now.
Hi, everyone. So as Kristen mentioned, I'm Ariadna Hernandez. I'm currently a project coordinator with CivicSpark. I was a fellow last year in the region, so I was working with the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District on one of their projects, which is an urban heat island project. And I was also working with Yolo County on their climate action plan. So I was working on 2 projects. I had another CivicSpark fellow who I was partnered with working on both projects. So it was definitely a great experience, and now I ended up here back with LGC working on the program. So I'm definitely excited to see all of your applications come in if you haven't applied yet. So yeah, I'm looking forward to any questions you guys might have about the program or anything you want to discuss.
And particularly if you have any questions about the fellow experience, Ariadna is your girl. She can tell you so much about that. So I see a couple of those come in, but certainly keep them coming. So the first question that we have is, do you need to live in and be from California to qualify for the fellowship? Definitely not. 1/4 actually of our class is from out of state. So certainly we welcome and encourage folks from out of state to apply to the program. I have a question for Ariadna. Could you talk a little bit more about what a typical day in the life of a fellow is?
That's kind of a hard question. It really, I think, varies from project to project and agency to agency, depending on where you're placed. But I know, like, for myself, it was, coming in and I was doing a lot of data research and looking into communities and kind of, what they were like, and kind of doing research more so on how to engage with disadvantaged communities in the Sacramento region. That was a big aspect of my work, coming into the office and just pretty much working all day off of the computer most of the time. For my Yolo County project, I did do a bit of more engaging with local government elected officials. So for Yolo County, we would go and do interviews with different representatives within the county, and we were able to present to a board of supervisors. So definitely going to a lot of meetings was one aspect. I think for the typical, overall fellow, it's going to be, being in the office the majority of the time, attending meetings, and potentially having the chance every now and then to go out into the community that you're with, depending on the project that you have. So it's kind of a mix of different aspects that you can get to work on.
Great, thanks. The next question that we have is, does CivicSpark provide any housing assistance for fellows? So we unfortunately cannot provide housing throughout the service year. Would love if we could, but we can't. One of the things that we do is we will put together regional housing boards so that as soon as you are accepted into the program, you can connect with current and former fellows in that region to hear about not only how do they find housing, but are folks looking for roommates or anything like that. So we want to make it as easy as possible for you to connect with other folks in your region so that you can find housing as soon as possible and hopefully share some costs by sharing with other fellows, but we can't provide housing. The next question is, will the interviews be held in the region that we put as a preference on the application? So during your second interview, if you are selected to move on to the second round, part of the interview will be talking a lot about your specific project preferences and regional preferences. So if you are selected to move on to a final interview, ideally that will be in the region with some of the projects that you have selected. Somebody else did ask if you were able to choose the project. You can't directly choose what project you want to work on. We have a lot of folks applying for not so many positions. So we will spend a lot of time collecting your interests and priorities and really encourage you to take a look at those projects to see what your priority list would be. And we'll do the best we can to really make sure that you are getting one of your top choice projects. But that can't happen in all cases, but we, as I said, take your considerations and preferences, but really put a pretty strong emphasis on that, and then match that with some of the interests and needs of the project partners as well. The next question that we have is when do you contact references? So typically, we will contact your references after you have completed your second round interview as we're passing you along to project partners. So if you did want to give your references a heads up, if you've completed your second round interview and you know that you are going on to a third round interview, that would probably be a good time to just give your project partner a little bit more of a heads up about the references coming their way. We'll be able to see this webinar as a video to refer to it later on if needed. So we do have one webinar recorded online already, but this is being recorded and we will share this with all of you after the fact, as well as send out PDFs of the slides. So yes, you will certainly be able to see these later on. The next question is, what do you think is the most important skill set for a fellow? And I'll let Ariadna provide some thoughts first.
So I've gotten that question a couple of times during initial interviews. I would say definitely a good skill set in terms of just like, being in the work environment is definitely, being flexible. You're working with local government, so it can change here and there, so it's not necessarily, you have to be ready to be flexible in terms of what you're going to be doing, and kind of, if things aren't going your way, just know that eventually, things are going to get figured out. Another one, optimistic is a big one. Definitely, 11 months for some fellows or, some people who've applied can seem like a pretty long time, and you're doing a lot of work, and maybe, halfway through you're starting to feel like, it's tiring, or, working with local government. And, certain aspects of that can kind of get a couple people feeling frustrated, but just being optimistic is definitely something that you want to be while you're doing the fellowship. Trying to think of another one. I think those two are the top ones in terms of the ones that I've mentioned to people and that I've seen have been really great for our fellows this year in terms of like them having those skills and being able to just be flexible and optimistic in the work.
And I think I'll add to kind of seeing the importance of service in the community as well. You are not getting paid a lot to do this work. It's a volunteer experience. It's an AmeriCorps position. It's a national service position. So you can really connect, if service is important to you, and you can connect this climate work to the larger benefits to the community. That's really tremendously important, not only to us. We really want to make sure that folks are excited about providing that service, but also it'll really help you kind of keep things into perspective, and I think keep that optimism that Ariadna was talking about. The more you can see the benefit of your work in the community and really think about that as the big picture, I think that's really important as well. The next question is, do local governments typically mix in private company services along with CivicSpark projects? No, not generally. Almost all projects are placed directly in local government or regional government agencies, and tend to work in a government setting, not with much private company interaction. We do have some fellows who are placed in nonprofits, but beyond that, most of the project work is very much focused on the day-to-day work in local government. You will, through your volunteer engagement opportunity, kind of have the opportunity to select what types of organizations you want to work with, and we have a couple of fellows who have just been certified as team leaders with Grid Alternatives, a solar company, but that's more up to you and more on a case-by-case basis, but the projects themselves don't really work with private companies. Can you apply for the Water Action Fellowship and still be considered for the Climate Action Fellowship as a backup? Definitely, as I mentioned, we really want to make sure that we're getting your preferences down. So in that initial screening interview, definitely making that known to either Ariadna or Melanie, whoever you happen to be speaking with. We have folks who are interested in both programs, but we'll first route you on to your top choice. And if that doesn't work out, or you're not really finding a project that fits well with your interests, we'll certainly can consider you for the other project, for the other program track. The next question that we have is if we've already applied to the CivicSpark program but did not apply to the water action portion, are we able to reapply specifically? You don't need to completely reapply. What I would actually encourage you to do is just look at those application questions. Those are really the 2 short essay questions are the most important pieces, and email Ariadna so that she can update your file. I think some of you might have her email address already, but I'll just repeat it. It's A Hernandez, HERNANDEZ @lgc.org. A Hernandez @lgc.org. So if you are interested in being considered for the Water Action Fellowship as well, please just go up on the website and answer those 2, or send your answers for those 2 essay questions to Ariadna. So the next question is, will you let us know if you're not interested in our application? We certainly will. We're right now have a tremendous number of applications coming in on a daily basis, so we're still reviewing and considering applications at this point. So if you've not heard from us yet, that's not because we're not interested in you. But definitely by the end of September, we will send out an email to anybody who's not selected for the program, letting them know one way or the other. The next question is, how did previous fellows make the $14,000 stipend work living in California? And I'll pass this one on to Ariadna to talk about her experience and the experience of other fellows.
So definitely, just off the top of my head, working with other fellows here in Sacramento, I know a lot of people who applied. I think half of the Sacramento group was originally from Sacramento, so they were able to live at home. And I know that's a big case for people in the Bay Area, since, for those of you who aren't from the Bay and are thinking about the Bay Area, definitely take into consideration the cost of living in the different regions that you're applying to, such as the Bay. So for a lot of people, it's living at home, others, finding roommates. One of the biggest aspects, I think, is food. I don't think it's on the website, but you can qualify for food stamps depending on the county that you're in. They can give you up to, I think it's almost like $200, like between $190 and $200 worth of food stamps per month. So that's, a pretty substantial amount when you're thinking about the stipend that you're getting every month. And just, cooking at home, not going out very much. I know a lot of people were just used to doing and living as frugally as possible. And budgeting is a really big part of the learning experience while you're with CivicSpark. So just learning how to budget and how to take, your income versus your expenses. Finding housemates, as Kristen mentioned, doing the housing board that we're going to be having. That's definitely going to be a big help, I think, for those of you who are moving into regions that you're not originally from. So there's a lot of different ways. And, if you guys have any further questions, like anything specific, feel free to call me and we can discuss it in more detail.
And another question that did come in response to that is, do fellows pick up part-time work in order to support their financial needs and living expenses? I know this year there are folks who I do know have part-time jobs. Definitely not everybody, but in your cohort, Ariadna, do you know roughly how many folks were taking up part-time jobs?
I want to say there were not too many. I think from what I remember hearing, there were probably 5 or 6, but I know that's something I've talked to other applicants about who want to take up part-time jobs just in case. What I would really encourage is waiting if you haven't done 2 jobs before at once, working a full-time job plus another part-time. Definitely we encourage you to wait about 2 to 3 months into the CivicSpark fellowship before you decide to pick up another job, just to make sure you're comfortable with the workload and that working extra isn't going to be a burden. And also, just as something as an FYI to take into consideration, some of your projects, depending on the project partner, you might be asked to work like 1 or 2 weekends throughout the service year, especially around Earth Day Festival. So just something to take into consideration when looking to work during the weekends. You might be asked for a couple weekends to work, so that's great.
The next question that came through, service projects listed on the website don't seem to have a strong water emphasis, so there are other projects not listed. So there are actually two separate tabs on the project page. One is for climate projects and one is for water projects. So the one that just pops up first is the climate projects for 2016-17, but if you look on the left-hand side of the page, right below that, there's a separate link to click on, and that will bring you to the page for the water projects, which we have several of up now. The next question that we got through, if our references are difficult to get in contact with, can we provide a new list of references? Yes, you can. Most of the time we will let you know if we can't get in touch with references, but if you do know off the top of your head that you provided names of folks who you don't think would maybe respond to an email, that is, we do send our reference requests out over email. You can certainly send Ariadna new references and she can add them onto the file. For the regional preferences, do we list our top 3 preferred regions, or do you guys decide which one we are best suited for? You can list as many regions as you would be willing to work in. And I think really thinking very concretely about whether or not you are actually interested in living in a region. Sometimes fellows will list every single region as a preference, but then when they are routed to a region, they turn it down because they don't actually want to work in that region. So selecting everything doesn't increase your chance of being selected unless you are actually really interested in working for those regions. So you can list as many as you would really be interested in working in. But again, as I mentioned, during the interview, we will talk a lot about your regional preferences. So we won't just arbitrarily decide where to place you, but we'll have a conversation with you to really see what the best fit is, and particularly in response to which projects are still available. And thank you for sending in so many great questions. The next question is, are all the projects still open, using that there have been earlier application deadlines? So at this time, all the projects are open, but I don't think for very long will all the projects be open. Some folks along for final interviews this week, so we expect some offers to be coming through soon. We will update the website though when projects have been taken, so that you do know which projects are available and aren't. So we'll be updating that pretty frequently, but right now the projects are open, but we have started passing along folks for final consideration. So projects will be filling up soon. So again, even though 2 application deadlines have passed, there's still time, but definitely get your application in ASAP. The next question that we have is about health insurance. So is health insurance provided as a package or as a stipend that can be applied to coverage we already paid for? You will have 2 options, or 1 option that's there, and if you would like to select that, that's great. But we can't provide a stipend for other health plans. For fellows in most of our regions, the plan will be from Kaiser, and then from fellows in our more rural regions, it'll be Blue Cross Blue Shield and Anthem. But we will provide information on the different health plans at orientation. And if you select the healthcare plan, you won't have anything deducted from your health insurance, from your actual stipend check. And likewise, if you turn down the health plan, you won't get anything added to your check. So just something to think about, that we can't unfortunately pay for other health plans. So the next question is, how many people typically apply to the program every year? So this year is on track to be quite a big record in terms of number of applicants. Last year we had about 320 applicants for 48 spots, so very competitive for sure. But we are getting a lot of folks this year as well, so we'll probably be well exceeding that. The next question is another one for Ariadna. By the end of the 11 months of 1,700 hours, did you feel like fellows were burnt out?
I don't want to necessarily say burnt out. I feel like that tends to happen a little bit more during the middle of the year. So what we've done for this past year and this upcoming year, mid-year gathering to kind of give time for the fellows to relax and kind of remember kind of what Kristen was saying, think about the big picture. I know we get so caught up in our daily tasks that it seems like, things aren't going exactly the way we wanted to, or like we're not making too much of a difference. So that definitely, I think, happens in the middle of the year. I think by the end of the year, everyone was just excited to be finishing up their projects and getting a lot of things done. And definitely graduation is something that our fellows really look forward to. I think people are excited, maybe a little stressed with a couple things here and there, but other than that, I mean, it's, a typical job where you're trying to get things done. I think it was a good experience. If you plan things out, I think it should be a really smooth end. So definitely, I think it was not at all super burnt out.
Great, thanks. The next question is, what have past fellows gone on to do after completing the program? It's very varied. There's definitely no one path. And also, we're only in our second program year right now. We only have 1 year of kind of data to look back on. We had a lot of folks going to grad school afterwards. Handful of fellows got hired on directly by their agencies to continue working on. I know already that a couple of folks have been hired on already by their agencies to transition to full staff members after the end of the service year next month. We had folks go on to environmental nonprofits, a couple of folks at different consulting firms working on environmental issues.
AmeriCorps program, kind of the people who continue on with the AmeriCorps service and go on to do a couple more programs.
Yes, definitely. A couple of folks went on to work for solar companies. I think one of the great things about the program is that it's been a really diverse range of next steps, but the vast majority of folks stayed in the climate or water fields. I can't, off the top of my head, think of anybody who went in a completely different direction. But we do a lot of work around job placement at the end of the year. We held several different career panels, info sessions on building a resume, cover letter, doing mock interviews. So we really do a lot to help prepare you for life after AmeriCorps and life after CivicSpark. So wide range of next steps. But with this next cohort of fellows ending their service year pretty soon, we're looking to actually build out the alumni section of our website so that you can more easily see where folks are going after the service year. What type of consulting do those fellow alumni end up doing? It's a little bit of everything. We had somebody go on to work for ICF, which is a really large player in the environmental consulting space. She works primarily on doing policy work with different local governments. So actually, it's a very convenient next step after working on policy and climate with CivicSpark. We had somebody else go on to do more field auditing. So it was a much more field work-based consulting project. But that was going around and looking at, it was energy-based field work. So varies, and it was actually very funny. Both those two fellows both spoke on a career panel earlier this year. So pretty strong connections there. And if you are interested, definitely reach out to us, and we'd be happy to tell you a little bit more about what they did. Who are the typical supervisors, manager, mentors? So varies from placement to placement. In the climate track, in addition to having your site supervisor, who is your point person, usually a project manager or director of the local government agency that you're working with, you'll also have a regional coordinator, who is, as I mentioned, that regional staff member who's there to provide support and guidance as professional development training as well. For the water program, your site supervisor will also be your primary mentor and person providing that training. But typically they're managers or department heads that are working on climate or water issues in the local government agency that you're placed in. Great questions, everyone, and they're still coming. How do we handle time off for sick days, family commitment, etc.? So all fellows will have 40 hours built into their schedule for personal time throughout the service year. This can be used whenever you would like to. We do just ask that you clear that with your site supervisor and our staff as well. But for example, if it can be flexible in some cases as well. If you work 50 hours one week and then want to take a day off the next week to kind of balance that out, that's fine. That doesn't need to come out of that 40 hours of personal time. So we want to work with you. We know that it can be stressful to work in these local government settings, so we'll definitely work with you, but you do have 40 hours built into your schedule for time off. So another question about the climate versus water distinction. So if our preference is for the climate fellowship, but also want to be considered for the water fellowship, we just answer 2 essay questions. Is there somewhere on the application where we can indicate this? So if you are interested in being considered for the water program as well, answer those essay questions. There's a button that you need to click that says that you're interested in being considered for both programs, and that will pop up those 2 essay questions for you. So that will then come up on our end, showing that you're interested in both programs. And then during the initial screening interview, you can express what your real track preference is. But if you already have applied to just the climate program but want to be considered for water as well, please do not resubmit your application. Just send in the answers to those 2 essay questions to Ariadna. So good question. So another question about program wrap-up. What happens during the graduation process? Is there a final presentation? So Ariadna, do you want to talk a little bit about graduation?
Yeah, so definitely what we're doing for this year. So what we did last year and this year as well, we had fellows create posters, kind of like a capstone poster, where you can discuss and kind of portray everything that you've done throughout your service year. And these posters are going to then be printed, and we're having a poster session for this year's graduation. And we had one last year as well, so just kind of for the fellows to be able to kind of showcase what they've done. We're going to have different state and local officials there, different groups of people, but we'll be kind of, at the poster session, kind of wanting to see what you've done. And after the poster session, we have a graduation ceremony, just, recognizing what our fellows have done and kind of certificates, and having speakers present. And then just a little reception at the end, but definitely before graduation, and as people are exiting out, we're going to have different documents, like transition materials that fellows will be creating. So definitely, it's a fun event. The fellows get to be recognized for their work, definitely in terms of talking with different people. So it's definitely something we love to do for the fellows, and I think it's something they really enjoy.
And you can also see some versions of capstone posters from last year on our website under our impact, one of the tabs at the top. So definitely click on that, and then you can see what some of the closeout posters have looked like from the 2014-15 service year. And the 2015-16 posters will be up soon. Very soon. Graduation is just next week, so yeah, it's a hectic time for us here. The next question is, just have that time for 2 more questions. If we're interested in a region that we don't currently live in, will we be compensated for relocation? So in general, no. Unfortunately, we can't provide relocation assistance. We do have a very limited number of relocation vouchers that we were given by Airbnb, but they're limited to folks moving to the LA region from far away. So it's a very specific number that we have, but in general, we unfortunately can't provide any relocation assistance to fellows. And then the next question, which is a pretty good one to end on, is what tips do you have to stand out and increase your chances of being selected as a fellow? I think I'll go first. So I say that some of the things that really stand out to me when I'm reviewing applications, I think is a really clear, if you can really tell me why you're interested in CivicSpark as an AmeriCorps program and as a service program, there are opportunities to work in the environmental field elsewhere, but really showing that you're committed to service and really committed to this experience, and it's going to be tough, and kind of showing that you know that and are excited about it and can really explain that to me. That's something that I really, really appreciate, and definitely reflects really, really well. I think also if you can talk a little bit in your application about particular projects that you've worked on that are maybe similar to some of the projects that we work on here at CivicSpark, so highlighting some of your experience in the climate or water field is really great and gives us a lot more information about what your capabilities are and what types of projects you'd be a good fit for as well. So I think being able to talk about why you were actually interested in this program specifically, particularly as an AmeriCorps program, and then being able to call out some of your specific project experiences in the past as well, and maybe tie them to CivicSpark, that would be, that always stands out in my eyes. And Ariadna, anything else that you want to add?
Just if you're, we love seeing people who are extremely passionate about, CivicSpark and being part of the program. We've gotten some applicants who just, they let us know they're extremely excited and they would love to work in this. And as Kristen mentioned, just explaining and letting us know why you're so interested in the program. And also, I think another thing that I look for, at least when I look at applications, is commitment to service. So since we are in the AmeriCorps program and very service-oriented, people who are just committed to service and, helping others, that's a big aspect of what we look at in terms of the application as well.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. I think you all set a record for the most number of questions on a single webinar. So really appreciate that. You made a really wonderful discussion there. But again, my contact information and a link to our website is up on the screen. So if you do have any additional questions that pop up as you're completing your application or going through the process, please don't hesitate to reach out to either me or Ariadna. We'd be more than happy to chat with you and tell you more. But thank you all so much. Really look forward to continuing to review your applications and talk to you all on interviews. But I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.